very important section, something technical also. Sample size determination. So when we conduct a Viva OC for PhD and pre-submission seminars, normally we ask one question. What is the method of sampling? And the candidate answer it, sir, I use simple random sampling. Again, another question, why use simple random sampling? He or she doesn't know. How did you fix the sample size? Sir, I use this formula. When did you use that formula? Against which data you apply that formula? Don't know. So that is why sample size determination is very, very important for a research in social science research. So before going to the details of sample size determination, firstly, I will explain what is population, what is sample, what is source list, what is sampling frame. The earlier example, total number of students studying in Mysore University. If I get the list of all the students studying in Mysore University, this is my source list. I have to select 500 students as my sample students. So sample size 500. Sample frame 500. That means the detailed information regarding the sample identified from the population is, or the detailed explanation to my sample size is called sampling frame or sample frame. So two assumptions are there. The parent population from where the sample have been drawn are normally distributed. And the sample must be the true representative of the population. These two conditions and these two assumptions are the base of sampling theory. So how to determine the sample size? In this example, 5,000 students are studying in Mysore University. I have to select 500. My sample size 500. How to fix that sample size? So what is the need for optimum sample size? Sample size determination is the mathematical estimation of a number of units to be included in a study. It is a mathematical and statistical estimation of how many samples have been drawn from the population for our study. This is sample size determination.
After sending the
please mute your mic, please. Or when a representative sample is taken from a population, the findings are generalized to the population. So, for example, I select 500 students from 5,000 students studying in Mysore University. I collect information from 500 students only. My data is collected from the sample of 500 students only. And after collecting the data, I organize the data, classify it, analyze it with the appropriate statistical method for testing a hypothesis. And the null hypothesis is rejected. Alternative hypothesis has to be accepted. And for that purpose, we have an interpretation. I have a finding. And that interpretation and finding is used for predicting the behavior of the 5,000 students studying in this institution. Technically speaking, statistically speaking, sample statistic is used for predicting the unknown value of the population parameter. The sample study result shall be utilized for predicting the behavior of the population from where samples have been drawn. So that is why when a representative sample is taken from a population, the findings are generalized to the population. Sample findings are generalized to population. And what is the need for optimum sample size? The sample must be optimum. Why? Because optimum sample size allow for appropriate analysis. Your analysis is meaningful only when your sample size is optimum. Please, madam, please mute your mic. So, appropriate analysis of data is possible only when your sample size must be optimum. If you desire a level of accuracy in your research output, definitely the sample size must be optimum. And at the same time, the validity of the testing of the hypothesis, or that means accepting or rejecting the null hypothesis, is based on the optimum sample size for your study from the sample you collect the data. So these are the relevance of optimum sample size to be fixed for a researcher for his or her study. In other words, if the sample size is too large, what will happen? Sample size is very small and sample size is too large. What will happen? The study will be difficult and costly. If your sample size is more than optimum or greater than optimum, your study will be difficult and costly. And there is a constraint, that is the time is the constraint. And loss of accuracy, if the sample size is too large, there is a possibility of loss of accuracy of our research. Therefore, optimum sample must be determined before the commencement of the study. That is very important. The optimum sample size for your study must be designed or decided or fixed before the data collection. Before the data collection, you fix your optimum sample size. And what are the procedures for fixation of sample size? There are 4 procedures that could be used for calculating optimum sample size. Number 1, use of formula. Different formulas are available in statistical referred test book. You can apply any formula for the fixation of sample size. Sometimes ready-made tables are available. In medical research, nomograms are available. In some of the computer software for data analysis, which clearly indicate there is an option for fixation of sample size. Any method you can choose. And what are the basis for determining sample size? What is the need for determining the optimal sample size? If the researcher decide a precision, that means 100% surety in your research result, the sample size must be optimum. And the optimal sample size will give you level of confidence. That means there will not be any type 1 error in testing your hypothesis. 100% you are sure that this is the result. And for that purpose, sample size must be optimum. And next, if the sample size is optimum, definitely researcher has the power statistically. That means likelihood of rejecting the null hypothesis when the null hypothesis is false. You remember one thing, the very basic objective of data analysis and testing of hypothesis in social science research is to reject the null hypothesis, because the null hypothesis indicate the negative relation. Null hypothesis indicate the negative relation. No researcher is aiming at to accept the negative relation. All the researchers have to accept positive relation. Therefore, the null hypothesis has to be rejected. And that is the power of your research study. And that can be ensured by optimum sample size. So, optimum sample size will give you the power to reject the null hypothesis. And that is a very, very basic objective of research in social science. Reject the null hypothesis and accept the alternative hypothesis in which we have positive relation among the variables. And next, knowledge of the population parameter. See, what is the behavior of the 5,000 students studying in Mysore University? The population consisting of 5,000 students. And how to identify the behavior of 5,000 students studying in this university? Definitely, for identifying the characteristic behavior of the population, the researcher has to conduct a pilot study, pilot survey. This is very important in social science research. But before the data collection and before the fixation of optimum sample size, a pilot study has to be conducted by the researcher. Preliminary study must be there, which indicate the characteristic behavior of the population from where we draw the sample. The pilot study helps the researcher to fix the optimum sample size. If you have no pilot survey or pilot study, definitely you can rely on previous studies. Customer satisfaction of State Bank of India in Karnataka. Customer satisfaction of State Bank of India in Kerala. Customer satisfaction of State Bank of India in Andhra. If you do research in the area of customer satisfaction, definitely you can refer all the earlier works, earlier research work. That means previous surveys have to be observed by the researcher. Then only he can have an idea about the characteristic features of the population from where you draw the sample. Otherwise, there is an intelligent guess that is not possible. See, what are the formulas available for the fixation of sample size? Kochran's formula. Kochran. See, whenever we conduct open defense and presupposition seminars, some of the research scholars present that I applied Kochran formula for the fixation of sample. Kochran. The formula is here, N0, that means optimal sample size. Z square PQ divided by E square. And what is Z square? What is P? What is Q? P means probability of success. Q means probability of failure. And Z value may be taken from the Z table, statistical table. Apply the formula and get the optimal sample size. The optimal sample size is 400. Assume the optimal sample size is 400. Another formula, Z score formula, necessary sample size, that means optimal sample size is equal to Z score standard deviation into 1 minus standard deviation, margin of error, maybe 5% or 1% level of error. Definitely you will get the optimal sample size for your study. Another formula, Kedreis and Morgan model of sampling. The formula is something lengthier here, in which we have a chi-square value, table value, 5% level of significance or 1% level of significance. You can apply this formula for getting the optimal sample size. This is very important formula. Optimal sample size N, fixation of sample size, optimum N is equal to 1.96 standard deviation divided by D square. So 4 formula I have explained here. Which is the best formula? The best formula is this, because when we apply this formula, definitely it indicates the characteristic features of the population from where we decided to draw sample. That is the importance of this formula. So in the last open defense I conducted in Calicut University, I asked that formula. See, the formula, Kedreins formula, applied for fixation of sample size by the candidate. I asked the candidate, against which data you apply this formula? What is the process of the application of this formula? And she answered, sir, I apply this formula against my data, against my actual data. Actual data means the data collected from the sample, which is determined by using a formula. So before the application of formula, she collects the data from the sample respondents Against the actual data, she applied that formula. How is it possible? Therefore, whatever be the formula you applied for fixation of sample size, that must be applied against the data collected through pilot study. And that is the importance of pilot study. What's the need of a pilot study? Pilot study is conducted by the researcher only for identifying the characteristic features of the population from where we draw the sample. So, in the pilot study, we have a data. Maybe the data collected from 50 to 100 respondents arbitrarily. The very basic aim of conducting pilot study is to identify the characteristic features of the population. Against that data, you apply a particular formula, any one of the formula for fixation of sample size. Then that sample size must be the true representative of the population. It must reflect the characteristic features of the population. But unfortunately, majority of the researchers at the time of presupposition seminar or public Viva VOC, PhD Viva VOC examination, they answered that they apply the formula for fixation of sample size against the actual data. This is not correct. Different formulas are available, but the formula may be applied against the data collected through pilot study. Then only we can identify the characteristic features of the population. So here, out of the 4 formula I have explained, this is the most important formula for the fixation of sample size because it may be applied against the data collected through sample study. It reveals the characteristic features of the population from where we draw the sample. Next, come to another very important section. After conducting the pilot study, for identifying the characteristic behavior of the population from where we draw the sample, against the data collected through pilot study, we apply a particular formula for the fixation of sample size. Then we have a determined optimum sample size. By applying probability sampling or non-probability sampling, we select the required number of sample, optimal sample from the population by using either simple random sampling or multi-stage random sampling or stratified random sampling or systematic random sampling or maybe convenience sampling or judgment sampling, whatever be the method, we select optimal sample from the population. The optimal sample is determined by applying a formula against the data collected through pilot study. Pilot study is a study through which the researcher can have an idea about the features of the population from where our actual samples have been drawn for collection of data. So anyway, we fix optimal sample size and select such a sample from the population, and the data has been collected only from the sample identified from the population. So work-life balance of women gynecologists, a wonderful study conducted in Kerala. Work-life balance of women gynecologists. See, you know the working pattern of gynecologists. The work life of gynecologists, they have to attend the cases at any time. During 24 hours, there is a need for gynecologists in hospital. Whenever a situation demands, whenever a particular case to be attended, the gynecologist has to attend it, particularly women gynecologists. So work-life balance, they may not be balanced their work life with the family life. So there may be the possibility of work-life conflict and family life conflict. Work-life conflict influence family life conflict, or family life conflict influence work-life conflict. There is a two-way relationship. So in order to measure the work-life balance of women gynecologists, one interview schedule is constructed or designed by the researcher for data collection. So data has been collected from gynecologists with this interview schedule or this questionnaire. You remember one thing? Interview schedule, questionnaire, observation, interview. These are the normally used method for collecting primary data. And in this case, this questionnaire is used by the researcher for collecting necessary information from the selected working women gynecologists for measuring their work-life pattern, work-life balance. So normally, whenever we prepare a questionnaire, the first question is name. There is no need for analyzing the name, but the name is specified in the questionnaire only for identifying who will furnish the information, who will furnish the data. That can be identified by just observing the name. Next variable here is, next object here is age. Age in the population or in the sample, definitely we create some groups. Those gynecologists having age below 25, those gynecologists having age between 25 to 35, then 36 to 45, 46 to 55, above 55. So we try to create 5 groups in the population and also in the sample. The scale used is nominal, otherwise called a categorical scale. The categorical scale is used for the measurement of a variable with regard to different groups created in the population or the sample. Likewise, qualification. Those gynecologists having qualification with the MBBS and gynecology. Another group of gynecologists qualify with the MBBS and gynecology and obstetrics. And third category we found in the sample and the population, MBBS with gynecology and pediatrics. So 3 categories are there according to their qualification. Anyway, 3 categories are created by the researcher in the population and in the sample. So whenever we create a particular number of categories in our sample and population, the scale used is nominal. Nominal scale is otherwise called categorical because some categories, some groups are created in the population and the sample. Similarly, in the fourth question also, how many categories? Less than 5, 5 to 10, 10 to 15, 16 to 20, 5 categories. And how many institutions have you worked in so far? Nil, 1, 2, 3, 5 categories. Likewise, up to question number 18, up to question number 18 in this questionnaire, we have categorical variable. What is question number 18? The question number 18 to the selected gynecologist. Do you feel any discomfort in your place of work? Do you have any discomfort in the workplace? Yes or no? 2 categories. Again, nominal scale, categorical scale. But if some of the gynecologists, selected gynecologists says yes, which means they have discomfort. They have discomfort in their workplace. So what are the reason? What are the reason why you have discomfort? 12 reasons were identified by the researcher here. 12 reasons were identified by the researcher through literature review. 12 reasons. 12 reasons. See, question number 18, part 1. Do you have any discomfort in your workplace? Yes or no? This is a categorical scale, nominal scale. If some of the gynecologists says yes, definitely they have discomfort. What are the reason? What are the reason is the second part of that question. If you have a question having multiple answers, that must be ranked. If you have question having multiple answers, definitely that must be ranked for getting the highest preference. Then the scale used is ordinal ranking. Then the scale used is ordinal ranking scale. So ordinal ranking scale is used only when you have a question having multiple answers. A question in the questionnaire is having multiple answers, then that must be ranked. Therefore, the scale used is ordinal ranking. Already I explained the nominal scale or categorical scale. Now we have another scale used for measurement, ordinal ranking, provided that particular question has multiple answers. That must be ranked for getting the highest preference of a particular answer. Two scales I explained, nominal, ordinal ranking. Then another very important scale, question number 90. You are requested to mark your response on a 7-point scale. Maybe we can use 5-point Likert scale, 7-point Likert scale. Maybe we can use a 10-point Likert scale, whatever it may be. The scale means different levels. Here, highest point is 7. 7 means strongly agree. 1 means strongly disagree. But the actual response of a respondent lies somewhere between 7 and 1. Definitely, you can have many levels, starting from 7 to 1 or 1 to 7. 7 highest extreme. Strongly agree. 1 means strongly disagree. Another extreme. The actual response lies somewhere between these two. And the opinion regarding the bad environment and climate in hospital, the response is obtained from the sample gynecologist. Bad environment and climate in hospital. So here, the bad environment and climate in hospital is a qualitative variable. What the theory of research says, especially in the module measurement and scaling, all the researchers should understand that particular module in research methodology, measurement and scaling. So what is measurement? What is scaling? See, measurement means measurement of a qualitative variable. So again, the variables are classified into two, quantitative variable and qualitative variable. Quantitative variable means the variable that can be expressed numerically. The qualitative variable can be converted into numerically expressed figure. Quantitative variable, anything that can be quantified. But qualitative variable means the qualitative variable which is not converted into numerically expressed figure. Quantitative variable, the variable that can be quantified. Qualitative variable, the variable that cannot be quantified. Theory says that nobody can convert the qualitative variable into numerically expressed form. There is no provision for conversion of qualitative variable into numerically expressed variable. So, for example, price of share of a company in the stock exchange for the last 30 days. Definitely, we can have that idea. We can collect that data. Share of a company in the stock exchange for the last 30 days. The share of a company that can be expressed numerically. This is a quantitative variable. And salary of 100 teachers working in Mysore University. Total pay scale of 100 teachers working in Mysore University. This is a quantitative variable because that can be expressed numerically. But satisfaction of customers, satisfaction of teachers, satisfaction of students, perception of customers, attitude of employees, that cannot be quantified because these are the objects, these are the variables that are in qualitative nature that never be expressed numerically. Theory says like that. Qualitative variable never be expressed numerically. But whenever we use collected data by using questionnaire, whenever we collect data by using questionnaire or interview schedule, the qualitative variable must be expressed numerically, and for that purpose, interval scale is used. Another scale, interval scale. So interval scale is another scale which is exclusively used for the measurement of a qualitative variable in numerically expressed figure. the qualitative variable may be converted into quantitative variable. That is actually called as measurement. So what is the exact meaning of the term measurement in research, especially measurement and scaling module? Measurement means conversion of a qualitative variable into numerically expressed variable, that means quantitative variable. So there is a procedure for the conversion of qualitative variable into quantitative variable. We can use interval scale. Interval scale means we can use 5-point scale or 7-point scale or even 10-point scale or giving a maximum score of this. There is another option. So by using such a type of scoring interval scale, we can measure qualitative variable numerically. So that is called a measurement. So here, bad environmental climate in hospital. See, bad environmental climate in hospital. This is the variable. This is the variable. It is a qualitative variable that cannot be quantified. Salary of the employees of a particular hospital, salary of the employees of selected gynecologists, that can be quantified. But here, how bad environmental climate in hospital affect work-life balance? How bad environmental climate in hospital affects work-life? That means the working pattern of even gynecologists. The bad environmental climate in hospital is a qualitative variable. So how to convert this qualitative variable into numerically expressed variable? And for that purpose, we use 7-point scale. This is an interval scale. 7 levels are fixed. The highest level, 7 means strongly agree. Strongly agree is the highest level to which we put a score of 7. The lowest level is strongly disagree. Into that level, we fix a score of 1. So by fixing scores to different levels, we can normally convert the qualitative variable into numerically expressed variable. So that is called a measurement. And for that measurement of qualitative variable, normally we use interval scale. You remember one thing? Interval scale is used for the measurement of a qualitative variable. Again, price of share of a company for the last 30 days. Salaries of gynecologists, selected gynecologists, their salary amount. And the age of the participants of this refresher course, height of the participants of this refresher course, that can be quantified. So anything that can be expressed numerically is called ordinal scale. Anything that can be expressed numerically, it is called ordinal. So 4 scales I have used. I have explained. The first scale, nominal scale, otherwise called categorical scale. We have n number of groups in the population or sample that can be represented by different groups. Then it is called a nominal scale or categorical scale. Then number 2, if you have a question having multiple answers that must be ranked, then the scale used is ordinal ranking. And the interval scale is exclusively used for measurement of a qualitative variable into numerically expressed variable or quantitative variable. And the third one, the fourth one, anything that can be quantified, then that particular scale is called ordinal. Pure quantitative variables are otherwise called ordinal scale. And one more scale that is rarely used in social science research, that is ratio scale, and it is normally used in agriculture research and medical research. See, temperature, 98 degrees Celsius, 99 degrees Celsius, 100 degrees Celsius, 104 degrees Celsius. If it cross 100 degrees Celsius, we can say that that particular individual has fever. And do you believe that even in -5 during winter season in Kashmir and Simla, there is no temperature? Even in winter season, that means at -5 temperature, we have temperature in our body. So that type of ratio scale is normally not used in social science research. It can be used in medical research and agriculture research. In social science, normally we use categorical scale or nominal scale, ordinal ranking scale, ordinal scale, and interval scale exclusively for the measurement of a quality. These are the main scales used for measurement of a variable, and that can be included in the questionnaire for data collection. Once again, bad environment and climate in hospital, this is a qualitative variable. This variable is measured by 4 statements. What are the 4 statements? 19.1, I am afraid of getting certain disease due to the bad environment. Fear of infection is very high when I attend the cases. No effective system for keeping the hospital premises clean. Overcrowding of patients sometimes prevents me from looking after patients thoroughly. These are the 4 statements used for getting response of the gynecologist for the measurement of a qualitative variable, bad environment and climate in hospital. Then interval scale is used for the measurement of this qualitative variable on a 7-point scale basis. 7 levels are there. The upper level, the upper extreme level is strongly agree, and a score of 7 is put into that level. And the lowest level is strongly disagree, and a score of 1 is put into that particular level. So by doing so, definitely we can numerically express a qualitative variable, and for that purpose, there is only one scale for measurement, that is interval scale. And 4 statements are used for the measurement of this qualitative variable. Why we can't use more than 4 statements? Why we can't use less than 3 statements? So 4 statements are the optimum statement for the measurement of this qualitative variable. 4 statements are the optimum statements, optimum number of statements for the measurement of this qualitative variable. And these 4 statements are optimum. Why? Because when we apply reliability analysis, the reliability analysis output clearly indicates as many as statements are necessary or optimum for the measurement of a qualitative variable. So whenever you have qualitative variable to be included in your questionnaire, then firstly, it shall be measured by using interval scale. Maybe you can apply a 5-point scale, 7-point scale, or a maximum score of this. And based on the reliability analysis, application of reliability analysis, and its output, definitely you can have an idea about how many statements are required for the measurement of a qualitative variable, either based on the 5-point scale or 7-point scale or maximum. So that is why interval scale is very, very important in social science research. Interval scale is exclusively used for the measurement of a qualitative variable. So in this particular questionnaire, bad environment and climate in hospital, one variable which create more discomfort among the gynecologists. No peaceful ambience in hospital, another variable I identified through literature review. Emotional nature of the work, impossible time management, no job clarity, no job control, more number of patients, negative reactions of family for long hours of working, emergency and unexpected work, no job sharing, lack of teamwork, social norms and customs and its rigidity, lack of confidence, fear of criticism, communication problem, mental exhaustion, physical exhaustion due to the work. So all these variables are qualitative variable that can be measured by using interval scale. For that purpose, we can use either 5-point scale or 7-point scale. Whenever we use that particular level, 5-point scale or 7-point scale, automatically that qualitative variable will become quantitative variable. This is a procedure for the measurement of a qualitative variable. But my question, all these variables affect job stress. All these variables affect job stress. So job stress is a function of all the other variables listed in the questionnaire. All the previous variables listed in the questionnaire will affect job stress. Job stress will create job burnout. Job stress and job burnout together influence work-life imbalance, that means work-family conflict. And work-life imbalance will create a family-life imbalance. And two-way relationship between work-family conflict and family-work conflict. Work-life imbalance will create a family-life imbalance, and family-life imbalance will create a work-life imbalance. There is a two-way relationship. So this is the way in which we can build a theoretical model based on different types of variables identified through literature review and classified them into dependent and independent. There is a network of relationship. There is a chain of relationship among those variables we identified through literature review. So that is why the entire model is validated by using structural equation modeling or sum. So in that particular chain of relationship or network of relationship in the model, there are some variable which are mediating variable or intervening variable, and some of the independent variables will affect the dependent variable. That dependent variable will become independent variable for some other dependent variable. So that is a specific feature of a model you developed theoretically. The entire model and the entire relationship, both intervening, mediating, dependent, independent, and all these relationship can be estimated, predicted, and validated by using one of the high-end statistical method, that is some structural equation modeling. So anyway, for the practical purpose, I explain one relation. See, job stress is the influence of mental exhaustion and physical exhaustion. So how far job stress is influenced by mental exhaustion and physical exhaustion, or how mental exhaustion and physical exhaustion influence job stress? See, there is a hypothesis. What is the hypothesis? There is no significant dependence between job stress and mental exhaustion. There is no significant dependence between job stress and physical exhaustion. Two hypotheses: job stress, mental exhaustion. There is no dependence between, there is no significant impact of mental exhaustion and job stress. There is no significant impact of physical exhaustion on job stress. These two are my hypotheses. So how to test this? The impact or influence can be measured by using one of the high-end statistical method, multiple regression or simple regression, whatever it may be. If you have one dependent variable, you can apply simple regression. If you have more than one independent variable, definitely you can apply multiple regression. So here, what is my hypothesis? Job stress is not influenced by mental exhaustion. Job stress is not influenced by physical exhaustion. Two hypotheses that I can prove it with the application of regression. So in the SPSS, I think you have separate session for SPSS, and the SPSS, we have data to be entered, and here in the SPSS menu, we have analyze menu, and directly you can go to regression and linear regression. And in the linear regression here, the dependent variable is job stress. Job stress is the dependent variable, and put this variable into the dependent box, and which is influenced by mental exhaustion, put into independent variable. Job stress is the dependent variable, and independent variable is mental exhaustion. Just click OK, you will get the output. So whenever we use regression, you always consider some statistic. Firstly, R square. Second, ANOVA. And third, beta coefficient. Third one, beta coefficient. Beta coefficient. See, Here the R square 0.816, which means mental exhaustion has 81.6% influence on job stress. Or job stress is influenced by mental exhaustion with 81.6% influence. This is the interpretation for multiple regression when we use R square 0.816 means 81.6. Therefore, job stress which is influenced by mental exhaustion to the extent of 81.6. So where is 19.4%? Here only 81.6% influence of mental exhaustion on job stress. So where is 19.4? 19.4% influence is due to some other factors that we have not taken into consideration. We do not take such factors into consideration. So that is why mental exhaustion has 81.6% influence on job stress. That interpretation is valid when we observe. That interpretation is valid when we observe the beta coefficient. So what the beta coefficient tell? The beta coefficient is 0.669 for mental exhaustion, which means if the mental exhaustion is increased by 1 unit, automatically the job stress is increased by 0.669 unit. So there is a positive relationship between mental exhaustion and job stress. If the mental exhaustion is increased by 1 unit, automatically the job stress is increased by 0.669 units, provided the t-value which is statistically significant, and here the t-value is statistically significant. Why? Because the p-value is less than 0.05 in this case. So whenever we use regression for estimating or predicting the impact or influence of independent variable on dependent variable, firstly you look into the R square, then observe the beta coefficient and find out whether the t-value is statistically significant or not. Then another important thing, when we add one more variable into this model, see, take regression, linear, here the job stress, which is influenced by mental exhaustion. In addition to mental exhaustion, I use physical exhaustion also for predicting the impact of job stress. So one more variable I add into this model. That variable is physical exhaustion. Now we have two independent variables, one dependent variable. What is a dependent variable? Job stress, which is influenced by two independent variables, mental exhaustion and physical exhaustion, and click OK. Definitely, firstly we observe the R square. Firstly, we observe the R square 0.870. That means 87% of the influence or impact of job stress due to some other two factors. Two factors means mental exhaustion and physical exhaustion. Mental exhaustion and physical exhaustion together have 87% influence on job stress. But when you observe the beta coefficient, see, what is the beta coefficient for mental exhaustion? The beta coefficient for mental exhaustion is 0.255 and physical exhaustion 1.024. What does it mean? If the mental exhaustion is increased by 1 unit, definitely job stress is influenced by or increased by 0.255 units. At the same time, when the physical exhaustion is increased by 1 unit, automatically job stress is increased by 1.024, provided the beta coefficient and the t values are statistically significant. Here, all the values are statistically significant because the p value is less than 0.0. So this is the application of multiple regression for predicting the impact and the influence of certain independent variable on dependent variable. You just observe the R square, just observe the beta coefficient, and find out whether the t values are statistically significant or not. So whenever you do your research and for data collection with the questionnaire or interview schedule, you must be very, very careful in listing the appropriate variable in your questionnaire and the measurement of such variable with the appropriate scale. Nominal scale, ordinal ranking, interval scale for the measurement of qualitative variable. Anyway, the use of appropriate scale for the measurement of a particular variable, which will demand the application of a valid statistical technique. You remember one thing, application of a valid and genuine or appropriate statistical method for testing of hypothesis is dependent on how you use different scale for the measurement of a variable in your questionnaire or interview schedule. So that is why use of appropriate scale for the measurement of appropriate variable in your questionnaire, and the questionnaire is used for data collection, and such data will demand this is the relevant statistical method for testing of your hypothesis. So you will be very careful in drafting the questionnaire in which you have many variables, both dependent and independent, and that must be measured by using appropriate scale. So today I explained the introduction to research, then what is scientific research, distinguish between scientific research and social science research, then why your work is considered as a scientific output, then what is the method of sampling, census inquiry, sampling inquiry, different types of analysis, then what are the methods of sampling or techniques of sampling, probability sampling and non-probability sampling, then what is sample size determination, how to fix the sample size by using different formula, and against which data we apply formula for the fixation of sample size, and what is optimum sample size, what is the need for optimum sample size, what are the different formula for the for getting the optimum sample size or the determination of optimum sample size, and finally how to prepare a good questionnaire in which we have a large number of variables and how such variables are to be measured by using different scale. So for that purpose, different scales I already explained. And what is the relevance of nominal scale? What is the relevance of ordinal scale? And what is the relevance of ordinal ranking scale? And what is the relevance of interval scale for the measurement of a qualitative variable? And whenever you collect the data, how to build up the relation and how it can be proved with the appropriate statistical technique. And for that purpose, I explain the application of multiple regression only. So normally, I deliver a talk on application of statistical technique in research in the refresher course organized by Mysore University from 2011 onwards. Continuously, I deliver talk on application of statistical technique in research. We start from the formulation of hypothesis